Hello there my lovely jewelry makers, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how we can make these coiled chain links that you can of course create a chain out of if you put them all together, whether that's for a bracelet or necklace or anything else you can think of. And I do also feel that it's very unisex because of the industrial feel that these links have to them. So if you want to learn how you can make them, then keep watching. Now these are the materials that we're going to need. Now the only thing we really need to work with is the wire itself. In this case I'm using a copper wire and the gauge is a 0.8mm. You can of course play around with that and use different gauges depending on your preference and the look that you want. And of course if you do want to turn these links into a chain for a bracelet or a necklace, you will need a clasp as well. So I've got a loft or claw clasp and extended chain and just a couple of jump rings to put it all together. Now we just need a couple of tools as well to be able to work with the wire. So I've got a pair of flush cutters here so we can of course cut the wire, a pair of tweezers to help manipulate the wire, and finally I'm going to be using these 6-step bell making pliers. Now you can use round nose pliers for this, but it is far easier using pliers like this where you have different size steps on them. That way you'll be guaranteed to get the exact size of coils that you want. Now like usual you'll be able to find the full tool and material list in the description box below the video along with useful links. Otherwise, let's get it all ready and let's get started. Now I'm not going to be cutting any lengths of wire, just working with it straight off the reel because that way we have minimum wastage. But I'm going to start out grabbing my 6-step bell making pliers here and I'm just going to be working with the second smallest step. So get right to the end of the wire and then we need to start out making our coil first of all. So grab onto the wire and literally just start bringing it around the pliers in loops one after the other, stacking them on top of each other, which is what creates the coil that we're making. Make sure to make them as tight together as possible. Now how many wraps you want to make for your coil is completely up to you. Obviously the more you make the longer it's going to get, so that's a complete personal choice. Now of course if you want the links to be as similar as possible to each other, you want to try and get the same amount of wraps on there. So let me just count mine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the links that I've already made, they have about 8 to 9 wraps. So I want to make roughly 2 wraps more than what I want to end up with. It's just approximate. But once you then have that, you can remove your pliers here and then we just want to cut this coil off the reel of wire. And just cut it right where the wire starts to get straight again. Like that. And then I'm going to grab my tweezer nose pliers here because we need to start manipulating the very ends. So just on one at a time, I'm going to grab the very end of the wire. Just like that, and only that wire. So make sure you don't accidentally grab the wire that's coming around just below it, but then grab that and start to bend it inwards towards itself so the end starts to come over the hole basically, and then keep going until the very end of the wire basically meets up with itself. So we have something that looks a little bit like that. Now I'm going to then take my pliers and just kind of stick them into the hole so I can get them in underneath this wire here, and then we can kind of flatten it out and then slowly move our way down to the point where the end of the wire meets up with itself. I'm going to then grab onto that place and then bend this straight up so it's now sticking out away from the end. And of course we can then just adjust it because I want this then to come pretty much straight across, more like that, so it looks as even as possible. And that is basically one end done. So we have our coil and we've created a little loop on one end there, which is obviously what we're going to use to then attach links together as well, or attach it to whatever you want to. Just do the same on the other end. So grab onto the very end of the wire, start to bring it in over the hole until it meets up with the side of itself. And you can see it's coming across the hole there. And then just put your pliers down and then gradually bring them around, basically opening up the coil a little bit right at the end until we get down to the point where the pliers are basically coming straight across in line with the end of the wire that's meeting up with itself, because that is the point where I then want to bend it upwards and just make sure it's sitting across the middle of the hole there. And when you're happy with that, we then have this full link in place. And it's as simple as that, how you make the individual links. Now of course you want to then repeat this, so we need to make another one. So I'm just quickly going to do that. Bring in your 6-step belt making pliers, start at the very end of the wire and start making your coil. And again I'm going to make, because I need about 8 to 9 wraps on my finished coil, I'm going to just make an extra 2 approximately. So that's about what I need, and then the extra 2-ish coming around and around, and then go in and cut off the excess right where the wire starts to straighten out. And you can see we have pretty much no wastage in this way as well, because we're not really cutting any wire off and discarding it. Then get your tweezers nose pliers, one end at a time, grab the very end of the wire, start to bring it in over the hole and further in towards itself until the end starts to meet up with the side of itself further back, and then squeeze your pliers in to open up that very first coil until we're in position where the pliers line up with the end of the wire, and we then just flick our wrist and put a little bend into it so it comes straight up from the end. And if you at any point, like mine kind of just did here, you find that the very last wrap has gone a little bit out of line with the one underneath it, you can just use your pliers and maneuver them back in place. But that's one end, repeat with the other end. Now of course we also want to attach these together, so I'm just going to show you that too, or if you want to attach them to something else. So grab the end there, bring it in over the hole, and then maneuver your pliers to get in that position where we can make our bend. So far everything is the same, and we're literally going to just finish off this end as well. Make sure you like how everything is positioned. And now the way that we're going to attach them together is, of course, these are basically closed off to be able to attach anything into it. So we need to open it up. Now what I like to do is get to the side that's not where the wire is going around. So if we just have a little look on this side here, the loop that I just bent outwards, the wire continues and goes in to start the coil through this side here and in this direction. So I want to flip it to the other side because it's easier to basically open up the end like you would open up a jump ring. You can see there it's just going to stick out and away from everything else, and we now have a little opening where I can then attach the other links that I prepared earlier through that, like almost like you would open up a jump ring, and then you just want to bring it down again and close it back up. And now we are building a chain where the links are nicely and securely attached together. So this is what we'll end up with more or less if we're making it into a chain, and I feel like it's quite a unisex look and could be a little bit almost industrial looking, and it would also be really cool to oxidize this because of all the texture with obviously the wraps around creating the coils. So that is how we create these individual links that we can then turn into a chain if we attach them all together. And it gives a really interesting and different look, I feel, and it's very unisex like I mentioned, and they're really quick and easy to make as well. So I really hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial for how to make these coiled chain links. Now I have loads more tutorials for many different kinds of chain you can make yourself on my channel, so please feel free to check that out. I'll put the link for the whole playlist in the description box down below. And of course, I also have many other tutorials on my channel, so please feel free to like, share and subscribe so you don't miss any future ones. And if you want to support me in any way so I can continue making these free tutorials for you, you can always use the super thanks button below. Otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.